The times that I have shot an animal, I've never failed to take a moment to sit there and just be like, it's like, wow. It's kind of I don't know if you're particularly religious or not, but I am. So I sit there and I say a small prayer. I mean, it doesn't do anything because, and that deer's sitting there and it's got a hole through its neck and it's gone. It doesn't really do anything, but, well.
Why do you do it then? If you know that it doesn't do anything, why do you say the prayer?
I wonder if it's more for me as opposed to the animal. So, of course, an animal in its own right will always be innocent. All right? Yeah, I wonder if it's more for me trying to sit there and be like,
Why do you do it for yourself then? What's the meaning behind it?
I wouldn't really know.
My impression would be, and maybe this is wrong, maybe this is right, but my impression from what you're describing, my impression is that it's almost like an absolving of guilt. So, hi Kyle, my name's Ed. Today I am at Texas State University in San Marcos, and I have a banner that says, give me your best argument for not being vegan. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the argument we're going to have or the debate we're going to have, but you've been listening and now you've sat down, and so I'm fascinated to hear what your response is.
Yeah, so first off, I'd say the word argument on the poster, coming from you at least, is kind of not correct, because from my understanding, just clear, concise points, calm demeanor. It's a debate. That's what it is, plain and simple. So the question I really had, though, is when you've had someone who's come up to give their argument, has their argument ever just been like, I'm sadistic, I just enjoy seeing stuff be tortured? Like, have you ever had that?
I've had versions of that. I've had people that say, morality is subjective, and therefore I can do whatever I want to an animal and it doesn't matter, and you can do whatever you want to an animal. So I've had people who have kind of thinly veiled sadism behind this philosophical belief system, but ultimately is just sadistic. Not so great though, right?
No, not really. I wouldn't say that just rampant sadism is really a good argument or even a good point for debate, but
No.
that's really all I had to ask. It's just I've just been interested.
Yeah.
It's like the thing, really.
Do you think that what we do to animals, it could be conceived as being sadistic?
Yeah, basically. So.
And obviously you've been listening to a lot of the conversations I've had, and I won't keep you for too long if you do need to dash off at any point, but I'm interested to know what your thoughts are about the conversations I've had, and if you had any responses to things I'd said, or you had anything that sprung to mind that you thought would be interesting to discuss.
In totality, even though I looked like I was sitting there watching and listening, 26-hour day, I was just kind of like, I really wonder if he's been asked that question. So I would say for certain, if I wasn't running on literal fumes right now, I'd probably be able to bring up a decent point of view right now. But I mean, I can barely remember walking to my classes this morning.
What do you think about being vegan? That make a relatively easy question. Just how do you feel? What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I mean, it's a lifestyle, if that's one thing. It certainly does, especially, I guess, if you're coming from a background that is meat heavy and you've consistently eaten meat. I mean, like me, just to do that properly, to research exactly what is an animal product or a byproduct, that would take a lot of time and effort to go through, and it's commendable. Efforts like that are always commendable. So.
Well, I think yes and no. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time at the beginning to get used to it, but once you know. Once you've done the research, you've done the research, and you say it's commendable. And I'm just interested to know why you think it's commendable.
Well, just coming from the standpoint that if you're I'm having a hard time explaining.
That's okay.
If you're coming from a background that you do eat meat quite a lot, to make that shift, whether it's gradually or even like just full stop, like right there, I mean, it's commendable because it takes a lot of willpower. I mean, if you get used to doing something so much, it's a habit. Simple stuff, and breaking habits are really hard. Even if it's eating food or if it's like chewing your nails or something.
It is. And you're right. I guess people who make that change, it's commendable because it does require a certain amount of willpower and dedication. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's commendable in any other way? And I guess when I asked that question, I was thinking more about commendable in terms of its pursuits, in terms of what it seeks to achieve. Do you think that some of the core philosophies around veganism, is that pursuit commendable as well?
Oh yeah, I believe that typically everything has its merits. I'll be completely honest, I don't really know a whole lot of stuff about, the veganism. Well, I wouldn't really call it a movement, just the lifestyle, really.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to animals, I suppose, because, I'm here to talk about veganism, which is related, and it's fundamentally how we view our relationship with animals, isn't it, and the exploitation of animals. Do you think that there is a moral concern around what we do to animals?
Oh, absolutely. There always is. I think we went over it in our philosophy class, and in high school, I took our wildlife classes for our agricultural side of things in high school, and that was always a prevalent question when we come up with discussions about livestock treatment and basically the ethics of killing something, which when you listen to that, it's kind of contradictory in nature.
Well, what do you think then? Is it ethical to do what we do to animals?
Like specifically what we're doing in like slaughterhouses and stuff?
Yeah, just the legal standard practices, just the normalization of what we do, the raising of them, and as you said, the slaughtering of them. Would that be, in your eyes, objectively ethical?
No, not really. I mean, it's just, of course, killing something is like never technically ethical, but there are ethical ways to do it, and I believe that from a first-person perspective, that doesn't make sense. From a
individual personal perspective.
Well, yeah, from a personal perspective of what I've seen, because I've seen some slaughterhouses, and even going into the ethics behind it, a really big reason, at least personally, that I think that comes from the just absolutely abysmal treatment of animals comes from the people working in the factories.
True. Yes, true.
I'm going to try and explain it as best as I can. So, when you are exposed to constant death and destruction, like with some people in war, World War I, World War II, you get desensitized to it. It becomes kind of like secondhand nature, according to some people in there, and it's kind of the same thing in slaughterhouses. I believe there was a study done at one point where it's like 67% of workers, I believe. I don't know the exact numbers, but there was a large majority of the workers at the factories that had harbored sadistic and or desensitized views towards killing. And they make terrible jokes. They're completely used to everything. It's just like it becomes a secondhand thing to just basically walk up and be like, oh yeah, animal, and then take a life right there. I believe that's one of the biggest points of contention personally that I can think of.
It's a great point. I mean, for somebody who's running on a 26-hour day right now, that's a really profound and very important point. Something that's often overlooked is the desensitization of violence to the workers, who are often victims of circumstance, impoverished people who maybe don't have the luxury of choice when it comes to employment, forced into a very violent job, a hyper-violent job that desensitizes them to violence, causes them to, have increased rates of, not just desensitization, but mental health problems, even domestic abuse, going home and hurting their spouse, their wife, their partner, because of this repression of anger and frustration they feel. It's really a sadistic environment that transcends just beyond what happens to animals and affects humans and wider communities. Really great point. And I think what a lot of people agree on is that what we currently do is kind of awful, and maybe isn't ethical.
Yeah.
The argument that I would make isn't just about like what we do now being unethical, but that there is no objectively ethical way to unnecessarily slaughter an animal. Interestingly, you used the word something earlier. I would use the word someone when describing a sentient being. So I would say that there is no objectively ethical way to unnecessarily kill someone else, in this instance, a non-human animal. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
Oh, no, I'd agree with it. I mean, like I said, killing is never really ethical. I mean, I guess the only ethical way you could kill something is if that thing or person or, someone is in like absolute dire pain. Like, I mean, there was a story that my father told me. He works as an arson investigator, and this was back in the 50s, 60s, hard times, and this was back before the jaws of life and real life-saving equipment was invented. So this one officer comes up on a burning car,
right,
and he's sitting over there trying to just yank this door open, and he's getting burns. The person in front of him is basically literally melting alive, and the only thing he can do is pull his sidearm and shoot him. I believe that is probably the certified it's a justifiable and ethical killing is to stop just to stop suffering. Yeah,
and absolutely. It's why we euthanize dogs and cats as well, isn't it? We recognize that their life now is not a life worth living. The suffering is too much, and it's more. It is objectively ethical to take their life in that situation, as it was indeed in that story you're describing. Mm-hmm. But what we do to animals isn't that situation, is it? We're increasing suffering. We're taking their life from them, not because of a benefit to them, but purely because of a benefit to us, or at least not even necessarily a benefit to us, because there are huge negative consequences when it comes to what we do to animals, but because we want to. Would you agree that what we do to animals stems from a want rather than a need?
From a developmental perspective of the human race, because we are animals, I believe that there could be honestly, there could probably be a study done to figure that out, and I would honestly go to say that somewhere along the way, yes, there probably could be some just factor to technically enjoy, in killing. I mean, it's a predatory instinct to kill. The lions kill, tigers kill, other stuff like that.
Do you think we should kill simply because they do? Is that a good enough justification for us to do so?
Killing to survive is different for, I'd say, animals than it is for humans, because humans are omnivorous. We can subsist off berries, plants, and meat if we need to.
Absolutely.
And with vegan foods and other processed foods like that, we can get those sources of protein or the other stuff we get from meat other ways.
Yes.
So
is it a need for you and I then? Do you and I have to do what happens? Partake in these industries that we're discussing.
Technically, no. Then no.
So why do we do it then? Well, why do you do it?
Well, I mean, for me, of course, meat just tastes good. So I'm not opposed to trying vegan foods. I mean, they have them in the dining halls, though I wouldn't really necessarily call dining hall vegan food quite quality.
Maybe not.
But I've been to some of the restaurants around here. I even tried some of the stuff in Europe. I went to the UK and they had some pretty nice stuff. So
nice. Not bad in the UK, right?
No, not at all. It's a great country. I actually loved it quite a lot. But to get on track.
So it's a taste thing, which would mean that it's not a need, but is indeed a want. You want to because you enjoy how it tastes. Does the enjoyment of these products, or moreover, the pleasure we get from eating these products, the fact that we like them, does that morally justify what happens to animals?
No, not really. I mean, just... Whoa, good lord. Strong gusts.
I know.
The moral justification of wanting something is, I'd say, as drastic as killing, just because it's like, oh, well, I like doing it. It's like, of course it's wrong. I mean, if a serial killer was to sit there and just say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill that dude because I like it, of course he's wrong.
Yes.
And I guess that, an argument could be made that of course it's wrong if someone's like, well, I like eating meat, so yeah, I kill the animals.
Yeah.
So of course, just from an outsider perspective of being unbiased and unthought, easily.
So would you say, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but with that line of logic, would you say that it is the wrong thing for us to do?
Yeah. Just as it's happening right now, the way we're doing everything, it's wrong. It's not ethical. It's not clean. It is. A lot of the standards in the industry have gone down because of just prices and just low. It has low budgets basically.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah, low budgets, maximization of profits and efficiency. But outside of that, that is the reality that we have. So outside of that, then, where does that leave you? What do you think that you would be inclined to do? Obviously, we've established that it's wrong, unethical, unnecessary. So where do you go from here? What do you think? Would you be interested in veganism based on the foundations that we've outlined here that potentially even contradicts the values that you have towards animals?
I mean, I've thought about it. I've grown up from a young age hunting. So, I mean, if your views on that are, well, I don't know what they are, but I'm not going to sit here and try and make a guess. But so,
That's okay.
From a young age, my grandfather would take me to go hunting, and the very first thing that he told me was, of course, if you can't at least, if you can't shoot an animal and have it drop there instantly, no feeling, then you don't make the shot.
Yeah. Have you shot an animal?
Yes.
How does that make you feel? When you were young?
When I was young, I mean, I can describe, the feelings at the time, but as far as like how specifically I felt, I mean, I didn't get any pleasure from it. Not at all.
Did it do the opposite? Can you tell me how you did feel? Obviously, you didn't get pleasure. So what did you get? What feelings did you have?
I'll say it kind of felt natural. I mean, I don't want to sit there and be like, oh yeah, killing's cool. It's not. But at the same time, it didn't feel right, but it didn't feel wrong. It's just my family typically uses venison and pork meat. It's ethical. Ethical.
Ethical. Do you think it is ethical? Objectively.
Objectively, no. But it's just our kind of tenets are, of course, making sure that there's no undue suffering. It's quick. It's clean, no unnecessary wasting of parts of the animal. So I mean, sport hunting, no.
Yeah.
So first off, we don't sport hunt, no sort of trophy.
Why? If I may, with sport hunting, obviously what we both will agree is terrible about that is it's just this pursuit of pleasure, satisfaction, makes you feel like a big man because you've shot an animal. And if you're not going to eat them, it feels like the animal's going to waste. It's done for an unjust reason. But when we think about these issues, is it not the issue of the individual? Is there really a moral difference from that of the animal between sport hunting and hunting for food? Because once they're dead, what happens to their body is irrelevant to them. They're dead, aren't they? So the only thing that matters to them is the fact that they have been killed. So whether it's sport hunting for fun or hunting for meat, both of those things are unnecessary. And the meat you eat, you eat the meat because you enjoy it. The person sport hunts because they enjoy it. So both of those come from an enjoyment factor rather than a necessity factor. So, but from the perspective of the individual animal who's been shot, is there any difference between whether or not they're killed and eaten or killed for a photo?
No, because they're already dead.
So why is it unethical to hunt for sport but not unethical to hunt for food if both are unnecessary?
Because the difference, I'd say, between sport hunting versus hunting for food is when you hunt for food, you use the animal. Typically, when someone thinks of sport hunting, and as a hunter who's grown up hunting and stuff, the way that I see sport hunting is that you're hunting not to feed something. You're not hunting to sustain, yourself or whatever. You're just hunting for either pleasure or you're hunting for like trophies. Kind of like The Predator, basically, from the movie. Just think of it like
exactly.
that,
Great movie, by the way.
So, yeah, great movie. Solid. But genuinely, what I think of when I think of sport hunting is either I think of like the very bare bones. I'm just taking, the skin or the head or whatever, and then I'm not doing anything with the body. I'm leaving it to rot, which is like poaching. I kind of see the wrong sport hunting as poaching. I kind of loop those together.
But to the individual animal, the experience is the same, which is what I guess the point I'm trying to make. And whilst we can agree that sport hunting is obviously terrible, and part of the reason why it's so terrible is the motivation behind why it's done. The motivation behind why you hunt isn't a motivation that would make it moral. And what I mean by that is if you hunted out of necessity, you lived in sub-Saharan Africa or you lived in an area where you had to hunt to survive, fair enough, but you don't. You hunt because, well, you like how meat tastes, what you were saying earlier. So in the same way as the sport hunting is unnecessary, the hunting of the animal for you is unnecessary, and the experience of the individual animal is the same, regardless of whether it's sport hunting or food hunting. It's the same. So surely the fact that they're both unnecessary and the experience for the individual animal is both the same means that they're both wrong.
Yeah, technically. So, of course, it subverts Kant's for me, but of course, in the broader term of things, yes, it is wrong. Like I've said just many times before, killing something in and of itself will always be wrong if it's not for survival.
Could we say killing someone?
Yes, killing someone.
That would be fine, wouldn't it?
I'm just so used to saying something.
But it's a strange thing, isn't it? How our language can reinforce our views. I think by referring to an animal as something, we degrade them. Because we so it's like this inbuilt thing that we often do, like we refer to them in a way, we call them an it or a something, because it's constantly denying them the right to be viewed as a sentient individual, which is how we view each other. You'd never call me a something, as I wouldn't you, hopefully. I call you a someone because you are an individual having a subjective experience of your individual life. The same, of course, is true for the deer who you kill. Even outside of the the deer hunting aspect, just your day-to-day life where you're just consuming in the canteen or buying from grocery stores or wherever it is, would you be considerate of? Would you maybe consider being vegan, buying plant-based foods in those environments?
Yeah. No, I've considered it. Surprisingly, the more times I go to the grocery store, the more times I pick up a piece of meat, and it just with how many times I've seen slaughterhouses, I'm like, dang, this animal was probably subjected to a pretty gruesome death. I mean, I hope it's not, but at the end of the day, I couldn't really know.
Yeah, so. No, and I guess we would probably surmise that even if it wasn't a quote-unquote gruesome death, it was still a death, an unnecessary death.
And that's even a thing that I come through with hunting. So I guess to kind of walk back on what I said, many times I say, so the times that I have shot an animal, I've never failed to take a moment to sit there and just be like, it's like, wow, it's kind of a moment I sit there and I'm just like, all right, you've taken a life, and it's not a small thing because it's a living thing. It's got its free will. I mean, I don't know if you're particularly religious or not, but I am. So I sit there and I say a small prayer. I mean, it doesn't do anything because and that deer's sitting there and it's got a hole through its neck and it's gone. it doesn't really do anything, but, well.
Why do you do it then? If you know that it doesn't do anything, why do you say the prayer?
I don't know. I guess it's... I wonder if it's more for me as opposed to the animal. So, of course, an animal in its own right will always be innocent. All right? There is no right or wrong for an animal. There's just nature. It's a big thing that comes up with ethics. I don't know how I'm recalling so much stuff from my ethics class.
You're doing a good job.
I'm doing a great job judging, just judging off of the, past day I've had, but, or days. It's, yeah, I wonder if it's more for me trying to sit there and be like,
Why do you do it for yourself then? What's the meaning behind it?
I wouldn't really know.
My impression would be, and maybe this is wrong, maybe this is right, but my impression from what you're describing, my impression is that it's almost like an absolving of guilt.
Yeah.
You say a prayer because you think by
exactly.
saying a prayer you're removing some of the guilt that you feel for the taking of the life. Do you agree?
Yeah, I could agree in a sense. And of course, I know that, just, sitting there and praying, of course I have my beliefs.
Yeah.
But honestly, I couldn't say that if it either does or doesn't. That's something that, in my line of belief is Christianity, that's something that, the Lord will judge me for in my day of reckoning. So one can hope, but that is yet to be seen. So
Well, I think you seem like a very genuine and thoughtful person who clearly takes consideration these things, and maybe through the fact that your family raised you to hunt and such as you. I can't imagine what that's like in a way. I live in the UK and we do have as big of a hunting scene there, and my family certainly don't hunt. So I can't imagine what it's like from a young age being taken to something with parents or with family members and having that reinforced as being something that's normal. And then you have those moments where you've shot the animal and you take that moment to say a prayer without even necessarily understanding why, but maybe subconsciously it comes from this belief that actually you feel that you need to because you're worried of how you may be judged for taking the life unnecessarily. And there may be almost like a guilt or anxiety around how someone could perceive that action. Which I think is quite profound, and I think it speaks to the humanity in you, that sense of justness that you have, which I think is really important. But I would say that there's something deeper there, which is that notion of, if that is the case, then maybe it could be simply said that if you don't pull the trigger, there's no reason to say the prayer to ask for any form of forgiveness or to absolve yourself of any form of guilt. If you simply didn't pull the trigger, then that expression or that need to express yourself would never have to exist.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a simple yeah.
It's a simple yeah.
I mean, it's straight up cause and effect,
Yeah.
If I pull the trigger, then I say the prayer. If I don't pull the trigger, then I don't say a prayer.
And the animal gets to live.
It's just simply yeah.
Yeah, cause and effect. Cool, man. It's been great speaking with you, Kyle. And I wonder if maybe there's an opportunity for us to both think after this conversation and to kind of reflect on these things. And you say when you're in a supermarket, you do look at the animal that you're about to buy or the animal product you're purchasing, you do think about it. Wow. That's so great, because so many people don't, and that's the problem. So maybe it's just a case of now we're in that situation, whether it's looking down the scope, or before you even get to that point, looking at the rifle before you pick it up to go out, or whether it's when you're in a supermarket or in wherever it is, and you're looking at the food and you're thinking about it, just think about it a little bit more deeply and go, hang on a minute, do I need to do this? And do the justifications that I have used previously actually hold up? Or is there something else I could do, a different way I could live, and a way that would live more in alignment with the values that I have?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, there have been times where I've been at a supermarket, and I mean, I know everyone talks about it, but chickens are just the absolute worst. The places are smelly, not clean. It's a whole thing. We probably know, you and I both know probably enough about it, and there have been times where I'm just like, man, chicken. No, chicken right now, man.
Yeah.
So,
that's how I feel every time I see chicken. I go, no way, man. Yeah.
No, I can completely understand it. And I think there's something that speaks to your character for wanting to care for these things that seemingly, I don't really know how many people come up and disagree, but seemingly a lot of people don't care for. Yeah. That obviously says something about the humanity in your heart for wanting to care for everything.
Hopefully.
I mean,
just trying to reduce the harm that we cause would be. Yeah.
It's, of course, from a Christian line of belief, my belief is that man was put on this earth to care for it, to tend to its animals. And you're caring for them, wanting to tend to them. So that means something.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's been so nice speaking to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a
It's
lovely
been
conversation.
great.
Thank you so much. And best of luck with your life. I hope you have a lovely existence, and I hope that you get some sleep.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Well, I mean, I'll probably wait so I don't absolutely destroy my sleep schedule.
Good
But
idea.
Yeah,
It's been fun, Kyle.
great. Yeah,
Thank you so much.